Hey everybody, Dr. Bain here. Kind of for a short segment, I wanted to make a segment about something that I've kind of been reading about, thinking about, and I think is really important because I was actually talking to a lot of my patients about it, the end of the last week and into this week. And I think a lot of this stuff is important to talk about. And so the goal of this video, I think, is to give you some things to think on, and things that we already know, to be honest with you. These are things that a lot of people talk about, and I think a lot of times we get sucked into modern life and we stop doing them. And I've been guilty about it just as much as anybody else. But, that's part of being human. Part of being human is making these mistakes. But as we raise our vibration, we get to a higher level of being, we can recognize that we're doing these things faster and that we are getting better at not doing these things. So I think the goal of this video is going to be talking about what's called the golden rule. And I think we all know what the golden rule is, right? And it's basically to treat somebody else as you would like to be treated. And I think we go about our daily lives and we tend to forget that rule. We really do. We get sucked up into the smaller parts of our lives. The things that don't really matter as much as we tend to believe that they do. So for example, right, if you're driving in your car and somebody cuts you off, I think that's a perfect example of a time when we'll think or say a lot of terrible things about somebody else that we don't really know. And I think people don't really understand the power of your thoughts and the power of your words and the power of your intentions. As I continue to explore my own consciousness, explore religions, explore spirituality and existence in general, the longer I continue to explore, the more that I discover that there is a massive power in not only your thoughts and your words, and of course your actions, but it's the other two. It's the first two that we don't really put a lot of thought into, kind of as a joke there, I suppose. But, we always think, well, as long as I don't do the action, there's no repercussions, there's no damage, no harm, no foul. And I think that we need to start realizing that that's very far from the actual truth. Your words and your thoughts have immense power and energy that can be transferred from one person to another, and it has a much deeper effect than you can even realize. So, for example, let's say you have somebody that you're a coworker with, and for whatever reason, a lot of people don't like this coworker. I think we've all been there. I think we've all had a job, right, where everybody's kind of putting down on this one individual. Now, granted, here's the thing. These individuals many times are, I don't want to say earning that, but they are embodying a personality that, let's just say, is off-putting, to put it mildly. And because of this off-putting personality and nature, many people are bothered by this. But then here's the thing. When you get bothered by that thing, this person, this individual, let's just say in this example, you are then feeding into that narrative by putting your words and thoughts about this person and putting them into congruence with what the group is perceiving of this individual. So I'll try to put that in a simpler term. If this person is being perceived as a bad person, and then the group collective is then saying the words that this is a bad person, and the group collective is then thinking that this person is a bad person, you are now putting an energy out there and a group collective consciousness thought to create the person that you are creating in your head as a group collective. You are furthering that person down the path of being that person by your thoughts and your words and your actions that you're putting into play. And a lot of people say together, I think, that they want to change the world, that they know that the world could be much better. And the reality is it could be a lot better. We could be so much further along now than we really are in terms of consciousness, in terms of our words and actions. And going back to, I think, the reason why I'm making this video is to get us all to collectively think as a unit about the golden rule and about treating others as you would like to be treated. But I think we need to go a step further than that, is because that's on the action level. There's 3 levels of how you can infect the world with energy. Okay, the first level is your thoughts. Okay, so that's the base level. That is the weakest of the 3 levels of how to create a change, is just thinking about something. The second level, directly above that, is the words that you say. Because once again, and I'll go about this at the end of the video, about the power of what do the words that you say mean and how do they generate, what vibration do they generate when you say certain words. And of course, the most powerful of all is action. Okay, so when we're talking about the golden rule of treating others how you want to be treated is the most powerful action. That is the actual action of doing something or not doing something. For example, if somebody is yelling at you and they're trying to get into an argument, you can either respond in kind, or you can take the higher road, listen to them, and then peacefully say your piece on your end about what do you think's going on. Okay, that's doing the golden rule in application. Okay, and just to kind of give you some fun references, because a lot of people, I think, spend a lot of time and energy about which religion and label do I label myself. I think it's, especially in today's world of 2021, moving into 2022, my God, you can have a label for literally everything about yourself. And I think at some point I'll make a whole video just about how how ridiculous this system of labeling that we're creating for each other is actually creating the division of which they're saying that folks are saying will be eliminated by more of these labels, right? As we continue to label ourselves into a more and more complex set of labels, the more divided we'll be. Why? Because there's no common ground as you begin to be more labeled and divided. Right? If this person has 20 labels and I have 3 labels, that's quite a difference, right? If we both share in the things that we have in common, that's how you come together. That's how you separate division. That's how you eliminate racism. That's how you eliminate hatred, is by finding the common grounds and at the basis of all levels of what are we together, as human beings. But just, in terms of the golden rule, I want to give you kind of a fun example here of how all religions, all of them, have some version of the golden rule as one of their main tenets. So, for example, we'll go over Christianity. I'm going to read them off the computer, so I'm sorry if I'm not staring at you directly. I got my computer in front of me. But, so in Christianity it says, "As ye would that men should do to you, do ye also to them likewise." Right? Golden rule. Buddhism, "Make thine own self the measure of the others, and so abstain from causing hurt to them." Okay, there's Buddha. How about Islam? Islam says, "None of you truly believes until he wishes for his brother what he wishes for himself." And let's go over also one more. Let's go over Judaism. "Love thy neighbor as thyself." I think it's probably actually my favorite because I think it's one that most people actually understand on a base level right off the bat, but they all mean the same thing. They're all saying of how the actions of how you treat others should be done in the way that you would like to be treated yourself. And if everybody followed the golden rule, I think we would live in a much better place. And we would be much further along in the pathway of spiritual development and higher consciousness. because that's the whole point of this thing. The whole point of being here on planet Earth is to raise your vibration and consciousness and to learn lessons, right? And a lot of this boils down into a much deeper theme, and the deeper theme being just love is the answer. And that's a very corny thing, but love is very real. Love has a very high vibrational level. And the more that you love somebody else, even if you consider them to be your enemy, the better a place that we're going to be in and the better your life will be. And you can see this so obviously in certain individuals who are either following that path as best as they can and people who are not following that path as best as they can. And I'm not sitting here preaching to anybody. I have lived a life of many levels of massive lessons. And there has been many times in my life where I did not follow the golden rule even a little bit. And there has still been times, even in recent memory, right, even from this year, where I failed to comply with the golden rule. And I'm not just saying in actions. Many times we don't follow the golden rule here or here. What do I mean by that? Well, remember, there's 3 levels of how you can affect others and generate energy on this planet, right? First is thought. How you think about the world, how you perceive other people is the first level of the golden rule. Okay, so let's go for an example. Let's say that you're walking along and you're going to maybe a restaurant or something, and you see someone, right, who's going about their day, and there's something that immediately bothers you about them. Let's just say you're the weight police. Some people are just obsessed with fat shaming people, right? Now, they may not do it publicly, but if you do it in your mind, you've already done it. You see, every thought that you creates a frequency and an energy. You can even measure it, right? Scientifically, what I'm saying can be verified, right? You can put electrodes on the mind, and I can think a thought, and our technology has gotten to a level now where we can track to what level in the brain that I just generated that thought from, and I created an electrical frequency from just thinking something. You see? So we know for a fact that a thought creates energy. It does, factually. So when I see someone and I immediately think that negative thing about them, having known nothing about them, right? And I'm just using an example of fat shaming because it's just something that happens very commonly. And in the past, I even caught myself doing it, right? But over time, you have to learn how to catch yourself doing these thoughts, and you have to ask yourself, why did I think that? Why did I think this about this other person instead of immediately going to compassion for this person? Why did I do that? And a lot of people don't want to take a good, hard look at themselves and ask why I would think such a terrible thing about somebody else, having not known a thing about them. And this goes for so many categories. This goes for looks. This goes for weight. This can go for, maybe I've seen this pretty commonly. There's people who get very irritated by children, right? They really don't like children for some reason. The fact that they run around and they're noisy and they're very energetic. And so immediately you put that negative energy about the fact this person's got kids or judging how they're parenting someone and things like that. Now, that doesn't mean we can't have an opinion. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if 3/4 of your day is spent on negative thought patterns, not only are you poisoning yourself, I can tell you that for a fact, that people with negative self-think are constantly ill. There are people who catch every cold. There are people who have a chronic disease of some kind, typically a serious neurological disorder. I find in clinical practice, these people tend to have fibromyalgia. People who have constant negative self-thought or thoughts about others tend to have fibromyalgia or something similar. It many times can be a psychosomatic illness of negative energies, and a lot of people just are stuck into that negativity and are unwilling to change the way that they perceive the world in order to come out of their illness, essentially. So your thoughts can accumulate together to create a change, right? So, you know, in terms of then group think, if a group thinks all the same thing, massive amounts of energy are created, and you can either as a group think of positive things, or you as a group can think of negative things and create negative energy that does something that we don't want to accomplish. Okay, so a perfect example of this, I would think, is appropriate, is we could look at religions, right? Now, religion has come with a lot of good things, and it's come with a lot of bad things. And I think the reason a lot of bad things happened is a lot of people who wanted power, wanted dominion over other people, changed a lot of what the original tenets of the religion were in order to self-serve themselves and to put themselves above other people. I think that's what's happened to a lot of religions, unfortunately. Or people use religion as an excuse to then do something bad in the name of the religion. And that's, I think, why it has fallen so far from what I think originally the original creators of these things discussed. I truly believe that the original foundation, things like the golden rule that every major religion has, were the true goals of these things. I don't think any of these quote-unquote religions wanted them to be what they are today, which is it's almost like self-worship many times instead of inclusion and non-judgmentalness and the spread of love and positivity. But on the good side of religions, many times churches or mosques or temples, right? A group comes together and they go to the first level of energy creation, thought, right? And as a group, they are thinking about something wonderful, right? And a way that you can do this is there is no rule that says that you and a group of other people can't get together and think something wonderful as a group for somebody else in order to create change. We've known that the power of thought, and especially group thought, has generated powerful healing energy for people for thousands of years. It's a lost technology that is only getting more lost with time because people say, well, where's the double-blind, placebo-controlled study that says that a group who comes together thinks a wonderful thing for somebody else actually generates a change? It's ridiculous. We all know this inherently as human beings and deep within our consciousnesses that positive thoughts change people, change things, change events. And the more people that think positive thoughts, the more intense the change is and the faster it is and the more miraculous it becomes, right? So in churches or mosques or temples and things, these are gathering places where people come together and they try to be better and they try to have good thoughts. And when they all have good thoughts together and great intentions together, change happens, right? One of the most common things that religions will do or people to do at these gatherings, and I've gone to many different types just out of curiosity, and a lot of times somebody will make an announcement that someone's sick. Someone has cancer, somebody has lost their job, someone has whatever, and they're just asking for your prayers. Now, prayers is a label for groupthink. That's what it is. It's just a different way of saying, can you please all think together something positive in order to create a positive energy in order to try to change the situation for somebody else? That's what they're asking. And the problem is that as the fall of religion is kind of coming, I think, because I think there is a rising of the level of consciousness where people are realizing that the label in which you decide to be a better person doesn't matter, and it's more about the thought, the intention, and the actions that you put forth is the bigger deal. We're also losing a lot of the great things that religions preached. And so we're kind of in a strange time where there's a lot of confusion of how do we apply certain things, because a lot of people are very confused about what to believe. But the one thing that everybody can agree on, no matter if you're talking to a Buddhist, if you're talking to a Christian, if you're talking to an atheist, if you're talking to a spiritual person, there are certain principles that hold us all together, and that is not by chance. We have all come to the same conclusions on many things, but because our labels are different for these things, we tend to create division. Once again, we have the problem of labels. We have a different label for the same thing, and because we have a different label for the same thing, yours can be incorrect. Yours is incorrect because my label is the better label than yours. And so in terms of the application of these things, when a group comes together for positive think, I can tell you one thing. You can definitely change things. You can even see this in examples of positive think and positive generation of energy creating something from nothing, right? Have you ever looked into companies that were started out of nothing and became gigantic companies? And you talk about, the interviewers will ask the main founders and things like, what was the secret? What was the secret sauce? And a lot of them, and I would almost argue all of them, will say that there was some type of energy that you could never clone again. You could never do that energy that we had that founding twice. Everybody was on board. Everybody was hitting it to the 100%. Everybody was hitting the gas all the way through. Everybody was positive and had full passion that they were going to see this thing through to the end, no matter what. And because of that positive groupthink, which then converted, I can almost guarantee you, daily into words of positivity about this is what is going to happen. And those words then generated into actions, which says, here's how we're going to do this in actual action and application. Huge changes happened. Huge. And that's where we need to go. If you're out there right now and you're watching and listening to this, and every day you feel disparaged at the fact that the world isn't where you want it to be yet, even on your own world or just the world in general, and you wish everybody would come together. And I think 2020 and 2021 has been a perfect example of how the world is confused and divided, but they don't really know why. You need to change your thoughts then about what is the future going to hold for everybody. We need to come together one by one and continue to wake up every morning and have positive thoughts, which then transfer into words, which then transfer into actions. And as more people convert to this idea, we're going to make a positive change in the world. But until everybody starts doing that one at a time, this is not going to happen. It won't happen unless we as individuals take responsibility in our own minds to generate this better positivity. That's what has to happen. And I think perfect examples of this, when you look at, let's just say, and here's the thing, I'm just using Jesus as an example because I think Jesus was an incredible healer and an incredible philosopher. And a lot of what he actually meant to say has been covered up over time and changed because of people who wanted more power. And, and from some of the books that I've read, Jesus never actually intended for there to be a religion. It was more of a movement of love and acceptance. And unfortunately, people twisted it. And then, of course, they killed him as well, just to kind of seal the deal right. But think of how that one individual with one main theme. He really only had one main theme, but he had many ways of saying the main theme. The main theme that he was trying to teach people was that you got to love people. You have to love others. You have to love your enemy. You have to love yourself. That's really all he really meant. That's what all of his teachings would boil down to, as well as all the teachings in every other major philosopher that I've read or healer that I've read. That's what it always boils down to. It's the same thing over and over again, but some people need a different person, a different reincarnation, a different wording in order to understand that same thing. They need something closer to their culture in order to understand the same lesson. And think of the major impact that he and others made as one person. I mean, it's pretty incredible if you honestly think about how incredible it is that one individual was able to change the hearts and minds of billions of people, over time, thousands of years spanning over thousands of years, that the one person could make that much change. And that includes Buddha, that includes a lot of different people. Gandhi, for example, Martin Luther King. The power of one person's positive thoughts, intentions, and actions, which then create a group think, which then create group words, group actions, creates big change. You can find example after example after example of how this exact same application has happened, but you maybe didn't quite think about where did it really all originate from, right? And the same thing goes for negative actions. Right? So if a group comes together and as a group thinks negative thoughts, they think and say negative words. And then after they say negative words, they implement into negative action. And then look at the great atrocities that happen in the world. Right? Of course, the main atrocity that everybody always wants to reference is Hitler. It's a great example of how negative thought patterns, right? Hitler's father didn't let him be an artist. And Hitler was a very creative individual, and he was a genius in terms of his intelligence. The problem is when you take a genius with a lot of potential and intelligence, with a fiery amount of passion for art and things like that, and you take that and strip that away from him, you just created a negative energy, and you just changed the pathway of that individual for the rest of his life. And look at the power of what that one action that his dad did changed his entire pathway of where he probably could have gone. He probably could have gone on to be a famous German painter that you maybe even would have looked at today and you would have revered for his incredible art. Instead, what do we have? Instead, we had a man who, because of a negative thought, a negative word, set of words, and then negative set of actions from his father, changed his pathway, put him onto the pathway of hate and the pathway of trying to find an outlet of, his thoughts getting twisted and turned, and then he wanted to blame one group of people for all of his own problems, which had nothing to do with all of his own personal issues. And unfortunately, because of his fiery passion, his energy, his potency, he was able to pull, slowly but surely, one by one, followers into this ideology. And because those individuals had their own negative thought patterns, negative words and actions that then followed from this group think, look at the atrocities that then followed. It's pretty miraculous, isn't it? To see how something can start here, move up to the words of how you say something, and move into action and the atrocities or the miracles that you can then create. And that's the problem. The problem is that this is a powerful thing, and it is a powerful technology. You'll hear me in many talks from now on talking about different types of technology. Technology many times is placed onto something like a computer or a phone or a camera, right? But there's other types of ancient technology that we've had since the creation of humanity. And there is a rediscovery that's happening right now for people rediscovering the power within, the power of the mind, the power of thought, the power of action. And a lot of people say, especially now, they're like, oh my gosh, history's going to repeat itself again. And it's true. It's very exhausting about the idea that history looks as though it is about to repeat itself again and maybe even brought to another level. But I'm trying to challenge myself, and I'm trying to challenge. Okay, check. Okay, and we're back. Okay, so the power of how, our this thought technology that we have and how it has this incredible impact and the rediscovery of that. And there's a slow awakening that's happening right now amongst people where this is beginning to be rediscovered, right? So I guess here's my challenge for you, and I'll end the video here. My challenge for you this week is to, as you're going about your day, try to take a basic tally, I would say, of how many positive thoughts did you have, how many negative thoughts did you have all day. That includes negative thoughts about yourself. That includes negative thoughts about others, about your day, about what's happening, about your life. I want you to take a tally about the negative versus the positive thoughts. And if you're finding that you've got a lot more negative thoughts than positive thoughts, you've got a big problem. And you have no idea the power of how that's impacting your life, impacting the lives of others around you. So my challenge for you then is, once you've done that, and if you find that you're finding more negative thoughts than positive thoughts, the first one is recognize what are the negative thoughts and how can we change and change the way that we're perceiving them and what are we thinking. For example, here's a great easy switch. Well, hard in the beginning, easy later. Catch yourself every time you think or say that you hate something. And then change that word and that thought in your head to dislike. So instead of saying, I hate carrots, think I dislike them. Or they aren't my favorite. Because there's a massive difference energetically between those two types of words and thoughts. That's a great beginning. So that's my challenge to you at the beginning. My third one and my last one is try to catch somebody else in the act of thinking or saying something negatively that could easily have been neutral to positive, and gently call them out for it. Not meanly. Just say, hey, you know what? I hear what you're saying, but you know what? Why don't we think about it this way? And that's it. Just try it once. Because if we all kept each other accountable more often for things like that, we'd accomplish things. All right, guys. Thanks for listening to the video. I'm hopeful to get more stuff like this out there, little miniature videos like this of having different topics on top of, make sure that you like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and all the good stuff. And make sure that you listen to the new podcast, the Unruly Doctor podcast. We're putting a lot of work into there. We've got a lot of great ideas. I'm trying to get some new guests on. I'm talking to a couple people right now to bring on as guests that I think will bring an incredibly interesting perspective on health and things for you guys. So, the Unruly Doctor podcast is on Spotify, iHeartRadio. We should be getting approved for Apple Podcasts soon. And I also post the video version of those podcasts to our YouTube and Facebook page. All right, guys. Awesome.